Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Wow, I know. I shouldn't be so enthusiastic in the morning. I mean, first things first, go home, Mother Nature. You're drunk. What the heck, man? 31 degrees. They expected snow overnight in Anchorage. I mean, it was like, I promise never to ask for no snow till after Halloween again until next year. Okay. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's crazy out there, but it is Thursday. We're working our way through the week, getting ready to do it. Full boat today. Big show. We got a lot of stuff going on. In hour one, we're going to be joined in just a hot second by Representative Sarah Vance, who was kind enough to drag herself to the camera at 0600 this morning. I mean, I'm such a mean person. Then in hour two, we're going to be joined by Tammie Wilson, who's coming in to talk about all the things that took place leading up to this special election vote in Fairbanks, where they crushed the special interests over this breaking of the tax cap, this special election. 2-1, folks, 2-1. They said not only no, but hell no. And we're going to talk with Tammie about all the events leading up to it, how it went, and what the reaction's been from what she's seen. She was one of the ringleaders on spearheading that whole thing, the anti special election vote. So we're going to talk with her in hour two. We may get a little gloating in. I mean, it's not often that we get to gloat, so we might get a little gloating in hour two. But that's the lineup for today. Tomorrow is Firearms Friday. Don't forget that. Willie Waff will be joining us, Chris Chang, and potentially JD Too Chilly, but we'll see if that works out or not for tomorrow. But without further ado, let's get into this here. Since she was so nice to get up so bright and early and be so chipper and cheerful, as is her normal mean, here is Representative Sarah Vance joining us this morning on her final week in Juneau. Good morning there. How are you?
Good morning. I am holding on for dear life.
She's white knuckling. So I asked her yesterday if she wants to come on, and she's like, okay, what time? And I'm just like, I wanted to hide, I'm so sorry. 6 a.m. I know she's, she probably may or may not have had her coffee yet this morning to get things going, but it's all good. It's all good. We're ready to go. And you only have to look at this for another 6 days, 7 days, and then you can pack and stack and get out of there. That's how it goes.
We hope so. There is talk of a looming special session.
Oh, no.
I don't think it would be immediate, but it's really hard to say. There's always that threat, but there are some larger issues that are probably not going to make it across the finish line. So,
okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that here as we go through this morning. So, Sarah, the point, and I've been talking to, trying to talk to legislators this week because we are down to the final week, right? I mean, this is it. I mean, the session length that was chosen by the citizens of the state is, of course, just blatantly ignored. And they run right past that 90-day mark, and they run all the way up to the 121-day mark. But that really is kind of a hard stop. And so we see a lot of activity in the last 3 or 4 weeks of session. And in the last week, it is like, I mean, I would say a sprint, but that would intimate that things were actually going fast. It's more of like a high-speed, three-legged slog
Yeah,
with a burlap sack over your face. I mean, it's kind of, it really is, but it's still, it things happen fast and furious in a slow kind of a painful way. So I like to visit with legislators in the last couple weeks of the session just to kind of get a feel for where we are going to end up. So first and foremost, I guess let's talk a little bit about here this last week. We've got operating budgets, we've got capital budgets, the Senate's working on, the conference committee's almost done. So as you see these things come on, and then of course the big thing, which really bothers me, is these big omnibus bills that come into fruition at the very end of the week because everybody wants to get something done, but we don't have time. And so let's stuff it all into one bill and then we'll vote for it to see what's in it, kind of thing. So give us a recap here of the last 10 days or so, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you expect to see in the last 6 days here or so. But give us a little bit of a recap of what you've been seeing here.
Well, before I do that, I want to give a shout out to former Representative Colleen Sullivan Leonard, who's in the chat.
Oh,
I miss her so much. Talk about a fighter. I tell you, she was just such a great role model for me as a freshman legislator, and we miss her down here in Juneau. So I just wanted to say hey, and hope she's doing well. So a lot of happy people in the chat this morning. A lot of good mornings and how you doing? And
it's a happy place.
Nice.
I mean,
it's a nice way to wake up.
It's a happening place too. All the hip people are in the chat room. I mean, all the cool kids hang out in the chat room. And it's always almost always a good place. So, but yeah, it's really happy. So come on down and join us.
Where everybody knows your name.
Exactly. It's almost like that. Norm. So anyway, we're all good. Okay, let's get onto it.
So yes, this entire session has been on fast forward. As the House majority, we chose to address education early, trying to really provide solutions. And, people just didn't want to play nice on that and kind of got derailed. But we've been working hard and fast the entire session. It really has felt like the end of session, the entire session. And there's people in the hallways who are even mentioning that the entire year. However, things are moving and falling into place. We do have the budget that is on time this year. The agreements that we made with the Senate to actually pass over budgets this year instead of the big turducken, is happening. We have a capital budget that has district specific items in it that is the first time in at least 6 years. So my entire tenure, I have not been able to make requests for my district, like a Kasilof flashing light. When you go to turn on K Beach Road for dip netting season and you about hit somebody coming out of the murk, I can finally try to get funding for that light for safety reasons. There's things like that we're finally able to say, this is a major need for my district. That's on time. Now, the last week in session, people are getting moody, so you never know what's going to happen. I think we have, there have been some turduckens, and one particular bill, my voter registration bill, HB 129, to clean up the voter rolls, has been sitting in Senate State Affairs under Senator Kawasaki all session. And he chose at the last minute to Christmas tree that bill with a lot of his requests. And
you mean like same day voter registration? And I mean, nothing that might be abused. I mean, there's nothing in it, nothing to move along, nothing. This is not the bill you're looking for.
So he has recently gone out in the press saying that he was working with me on that and that we had agreements on things. And he has been talking to me about it, but I never made agreements on such things. And I was saying, okay, same day voter registration is a non-starter. So we'll start with that. I did comb through the other additions to the bill, and there were other things that I just couldn't move on. What my bill did is reduce the time it takes for someone to be moved to the inactive status. It reduced it by 2 years. It's an 8-year cycle to be able to cancel a voter registration. The division cannot remove someone off of the voter rolls outside of federal statute. And that's
Right.
a while.
8
So I was
years,
trying to reduce the number that it took to at least move them to inactive so they could begin looking to see whether or not they were an Alaskan. And they didn't like that. They wanted to keep it the full 8-year cycle. And that was really a non-negotiable. I said, what's the point of the entire bill? So there were quite a few other humdingers in there. And yesterday I said, I don't think we should go forward anymore on this. The bill itself is a really good bill that I received bipartisan support in the House. So if you want to move that, it'll be great. Otherwise, I'm not going to play anymore. So that bill is sitting in Senate Finance.
I am going to pull this bill so fast, and it's good. So
they have an opportunity to pass a great bill.
So
maybe
they can pass.
Senator Kawasaki needs some encouragement.
So you told Scotty that you can either pass the bill clean or it's done, essentially. And so now it sits in Senate Finance. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, did he move it clean or did he?
No, that was yesterday. That past couple of days we've been really working on, okay, what is it that you have to have? And I said, look, I passed over a clean bill with bipartisan support. Whatever else is in there, I don't know if I can get concurrence. A lot of those provisions that were added has never been moved through the House. So, I have members who are not familiar with a lot of the election stuff. And I was just really doubting that all of it was a good idea.
I don't want to cast aspersions too much here, but boy, that looks like a poison pill. I mean, it really looks like, and again, this has been sitting there all year. You could have done something with it. It was pretty clean. It was pretty concise. It was not a huge overarching 31-page bill. It was a 2-page bill that just said this, this, and this. And the next thing you know, they loaded up with stuff that, I mean, quite honestly, they have to know that nobody's going to jump on board with on the more conservative people who are concerned with election integrity and everything else. They're not going to say, sure, shorten it from 8 to 2. And then, oh, by the way, same day voter registration. They're not, that's a non-starter.
They were willing to remove the same day voter registration, but not changing the years for the division on the timeline to clean up the voter rolls. The entire point of the bill, that was the compromise, because I could have reduced it by 4 years.
Right.
The 2 years was the compromise. So, I'm just trying to clean up our voter rolls. I think that's the number one. That's the very first issue to start addressing election integrity. It's a bipartisan issue. Everyone cares about this. If they're not Alaskans, get them off of our voter rolls.
I mean, you leave and it's 8 years before you leave there, or you die and it's 8 years before you. I mean, come on.
Well, it's for the full cycle to actually cancel the registration. Yes. So there is support by Democrats for that, but Kawasaki wanted other things, which is understandable. But I just wasn't willing to play. Uh-oh, my kettle's boiling.
Good for you. All right. Well, that's a good point to move on here. We got to go. We'll be back. We're up against a commercial break. She's going to make some beard curler coffee there, and then we're going to come back and do some more chatting. Representative Sarah Vance, The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Isn't it the lieutenant governor's job to clean up the voter rolls? Oh, yeah, never mind. She's running a campaign. So, I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, show me a lieutenant governor who has really done a good job with the cleaning up the voter rolls division of elections. I mean, it's like it's your one job. We still can't even get the report from the OMB on the actions and the effects of the division of elections. Mike Shower's been trying to get that that report for what, 2.5 years now? Not a single one. So yeah, it's shocking, I tell you, that they don't want to change the voter rolls, regulations, or show exactly what's going on. She's not drinking beer curler. I lied. It was me taking liberties. So you should be happy that you're not forced to drink Folgers. That's it. Although I do see a Folgers right there next to her in her. It's what I
That's
thought.
not what I'm drinking.
It's not, but you're not drinking it. Yeah, good. Because I mean, who would French press Folgers? I mean, that's like, it's like trying to strain gasoline with your teeth. All right. Jason says there's only one reason you don't want to clean up the voter rolls. I would anybody who would be hesitant to shorten the time frame from 8 years down to something more reasonable, I would be like, why? Why does it take 8 years? Why are you in favor of it remaining at 8 years? Why are you in favor of remaining at 4 years? I mean, that just seems like it's excessive. Any justification for that, Sarah? You said some of them didn't want to touch it. Any reason why?
Well, there's a concern that people who are not frequent voters would be kicked off the roll. And I said that's not really the case, because the division, according to my bill, the division will send out a postcard by forwardable mail, at the beginning of the year that says, hey, have you changed your address? Are you still here? And the individual has 45 days to respond to the division and say, yeah, I'm here. I want to keep my voting status. You can also respond by email, according to my bill. So as long as you're making communication with the district of, yeah, here's my new address, I'm not going anywhere, I still want to be an Alaska voter, you're going to remain on the roll. It's when the division doesn't hear anything from someone, or according to my bill, they have shown evidence of residency someplace else. So the whole purpose is to get people who are no longer living in Alaska off of our voter rolls. And I gave specific data to use on how to get that confirmation. So, it's a good bill. They didn't, to Senator Kawasaki's credit, he didn't complain about the other merits of the bill. It's just that timeline made him uncomfortable because he was concerned that people who are Alaskans but don't vote in every election would be removed. And I said, they can contact the division, or the other backstop is go vote. You can vote a question ballot and you'll automatically be put back in the active status.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, why should it take my mind is blown on this. All right, well, it's oh my gosh. Sorry, I keep getting these spam comments in the chat and I keep deleting them from different users. All right. So I do want to, we're 45 seconds away from rejoining. So I do want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned the transfers of the budgets back and forth. But now things are in conference and everything else. And so I want to talk a little bit about your expectations of conference and how you think that's going to work out. Is there going to be a my way or the highway moment? The Senate is taking their sweet time with things, and in the past, and of course have done the turducken thing on you at the last minute. So I want to kind of walk through the mechanics of what's going to happen here over the next 6 days, and we'll see what goes on here. All right. Sarah Vance, our guest. She's caffeinated. She's ready. Let's do this. Let's do this. Go press that coffee. Let's go. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Yep, we are ready. Go juice in hand. Sarah Vance joins us now. She's got her hot cup of joe, and she is ready to continue on here on this early morning sprint. I try and bring her into the 7 o'clock hour. It's that extra hour. She doesn't need the beauty sleep, but she's that extra hour. But today I just couldn't make it happen. She was kind enough to come on anyway. Let's continue on here this morning. Sarah, as we were coming back, I said the one thing I want to talk about here is the mechanics of what happens in the final days. We know last year, of course, the chicanery and the nonsense from the Senate, where they stuffed everything into one bill and then walked away and said, "Take it or leave it, we're leaving." Which was, kind of the hostage taking, terroristic threats. This year, of course, they were able to exchange the bills. The House now voted, if I'm not incorrect, voted yesterday on the capital budget. That's all passed and good to go. So the mechanics of it, is there still a possibility of some kind of hostage taking remaining in these last few days here as we come up to next Wednesday? Is there a possibility for something like that to happen? Are you watching for it? I know there's been agreements between the leaderships, but that's never stopped them from sticking the knife in when you turn around. So what can you give us the mechanics of what happens here and what the good and bad possibilities are?
Of course, but first, why, yes, Rick, I drink my coffee black as death.
Black as death. Dark as night on a moonless night, and black.
That's right.
Black as the soul. I mean, no, it's a.
I have a funny story about that, but I digress. Yes, there is always an opportunity for the knife in the back. We are in the Capitol after all. However, everything's going according to plan so far. There's been looming rumors that the Senate will do a dump and run and pass their budget over and then adjourn before the House has an opportunity to even say anything. So that could happen on Monday. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, you've passed the operating budget over to them. They still have it, so they could dump it and then not give the House a chance to concur. They could just sine die and that's it.
Well, not yet. So
Okay.
Right now they're in conference committee. So remember the process is
Right.
The operating budget begins in the House, the capital budget begins in the Senate, and then we switch and take them up. And we had to make arrangements this year to make the swap on the same day. Remember, there was a big whole scene in the hallway where
Right.
it was
A Mexican standoff where they all stand on either side, and yeah.
Correct. But it worked. And that's traditional from before my time, actually. And right now, we just passed the capital budget. They're supposed to be passing the operating budget, make that swap back. Actually, let me take it back. They're conferencing on the operating budget right now. We're supposed to do that with the capital budget as well. So when we choose not to concur, because the Senate made changes to the operating budget, of course they did. They pick 3 from each body and they meet in what's called a conference committee, where they can only conference the items that there was disagreement. So if that conference fails and they do not have an agreement, they move into what is called free conference. And this is the part that you want to pay attention to, because I may have skipped a step. There's limited conference, then free conference. I've been hearing whispers that the Senate wants to get to free conference. Free conference is when they can just make up numbers themselves. And that's likely what's going to happen. The Senate has a very limited dividend, and they've had their eye on a smaller dividend for quite some time. But right now in the conference, they can't just pick a number. They have to use what is there. And we'll see how it comes out in the wash.
So with a limited conference or with a free conference, because again, a conference committee is made up of 3 members of each body, and they're all finance committee members. Ironically, there's no minority members in the Senate's conference because there is no official minority. So
Correct.
they got 3 members of the majority. On the House side, they've got 2 members of the majority and a member of the minority, but it's like they're all it's going to be 4-1, 4-2 in the end, right? In the 6-member committee, it's actually going to be 4-2 because the member of the minority is going to caucus with the Senate. I think that's kind of how it's going to go. But so what happens in a free committee? That process breaks, and then they just get to decide from their side, and the House gets no say. How does the free committee work?
So there's several levels of the conference committee, and it's right now they're in the first level of conference committee. If that fails, they say, no, we can come to agreement. Then they come back to the body, and the presiding officers have to appoint new members to the next level of conference. So eventually they reach the level of free conference where the numbers get loose. So we'll see.
The loose unit is the loose unit. The numbers get loose. And so the rumor is that they're trying to get to that point so they can then say, this is our number, and then they turn it back over to you.
Yes. And that's not uncommon to go through these levels of conference. It happens probably every year, except for last year when the Senate handed us their turducken on the last day. And so we didn't have conference committee. It's only happened 2 times in the entire history of the state. So it is common to do the conference committee and have, several levels of the conference. So don't feel like it's out of the ordinary, but that's what's happening this week. And then once they finally make an agreement, they bring it back to each body to concur, to say, yes, we accept this budget. And that's the one where everything will be final. So we have not had our final vote on the budget yet, but that's our get out of jail card, is the budget. And because everything stops after that.
Right. So again, you're saying that they may turn it over on Monday, and then what? Then they wash their hands of it and don't, or they concur on their side and then walk away and leave it to you. And they've adjourned, so they can't be called back for any more committees. If you guys say, no, this is still wrong, they're like, well, we're done. I mean, is that what you're saying?
So Wednesday is the final day. They could vote on their budget and then adjourn sine die on Monday. They can't do any earlier than that because the rules say that one body can only adjourn for 3 days without the other body agreeing. Right. So they couldn't leave any earlier than Monday, but it would certainly short circuit some things because we have some important bills that we haven't passed. There's a standoff. And right now there's hesitancy from each body to pass anything over because of things getting stuffed. And I will admit, I added things to Senator Clayman's bill in my committee last night. He has a workplace violence protective order bill that's actually a really good bill. And I added the crime of human and sex trafficking in the council to that I've been working on, for a while. And it's great bills that we worked on in the House and put that in there because it in my mind, it fit to provide protections for victims. So we'll see how they feel about that and, try and get some solutions.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, we are coming up to it now, and the possibility that play some hypothetical what if with me for a second. If that happens, this rumor, because you're not the only, that's the reason that I asked the question is because I too had heard the rumor that this was kind of on the plate, that the potential that the Senate might do this was happening. But play some what if with me. If it does happen, how does that affect the relationship between the house? I mean, fool me once, oh man, but fool me twice and stick it in and break it off and then pour lemon juice on it. I mean, what does that do for the next session? What does that do working with these people who said one thing and have continually done something and shown disdain, really, for the house in that way?
Well, Michael, would you be surprised?
No, I would
No.
absolutely not be surprised because, and I'll be honest with you, there is a lot of, this is my opinion, not Sarah's. I don't want anybody to say, but there's a lot of arrogance on the other side of that table, where people they truly believe in their heart of hearts that they're doing the right thing. They believe that they're doing the best for everyone. And two, they truly believe that they are the smartest people in the room and that they know everything and they know better than you and me and the house how everything should be run. There's a tremendous amount of arrogance there. And so it would not shock me at all. But it would lead to some real problems in future sessions.
It could, but however, they're the Senate and they get away with it. They're very corporate minded in the Senate. I mean, if you watch their floor sessions versus the House sessions, they look like they're having a corporate meeting over there. They just get in, they check off the boxes and they get out. Over in the House, it's like a group therapy session. So I can kind of understand their feelings a little bit about how they just run a tight ship with the clock. But you're right. They do have a different mindset in the Senate, but since I've been here, it's what the Senate does. However, we do have 17 members who this is their first term and they haven't quite experienced this. I mean, last year when the turducken came, these new members were just mortified, and I remember being at that place, absolute disgust at the disrespect to the people regarding the process. So I will say that, the Senate has been working through the process, which I believe is respectful to Alaskans. So I will give them that. Let's just hope that that they will continue that to the final day.
Is your middle name Pollyanna? I'm just asking because, I guess it's a prepare for the worst and hope for the best kind of scenario. Is there anything that the House, leadership, the majority can do to short circuit that or to make that a lesser possibility? I mean, can you guys hold on to something until the last minute? And, is it going to be another standoff in the hallway where you hold it out and they grab it, you hold on to it till they put theirs in your hand? I mean, is that going to happen? Is there anything that can be done?
Well, that is kind of the way that it's been going is, hey, we're keeping up our end of the bargain. We're going to be respectful to you in this process and making sure that we're adhering to that and having the expectation from them. It's when there's a mutual respect, it goes a long way. And so I don't want to diminish the significance that the Senate really has been keeping their word on that this year, because that's a big deal, especially it's such a big contrast from last year. So our leadership has been working real hard to make sure that the relationship with the Senate is moving forward. Things are getting a little dicey. There's a lot of, heavy bills right now, but right. I've seen that. I don't know that it's been to the level that it's happening this year. And there's some of the old guard who are really not happy about it. And, we're just trying to get things done because some things moved super fast and other things just sat there and didn't have movement. And we're saying, wait a minute, there's no reason to be holding this up. So, it's all part of the negotiations and figuring out what we can get. That's why people are also talking about potential for special sessions later this year regarding energy and education. And, that's not a threat. I think that's necessary because we can't solve those problems today. They need a little bit more time.
And we're going to continue to talk about that in the next segment. the potential for a special session on an election year. I didn't think we would ever be talking about that. Sarah Vance is our guest. We're going to continue the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
It's only funny because it's the truth. It's only funny because it is the truth. She knows it too. That's the worst part. She knows it's the truth. I mean, when I was shocked to find out that somebody actually takes the time to write transcripts of the show and pass them out to Senate leadership. I mean, they take my words as I'm speaking them now and they write them down and print them out and hand them out and say, "Can you believe he said this?" Yes.
Can you imagine being a young person that's like, man, I finally got a job working in the state legislature.
Yeah. My job is to get up at 6 a.m. and listen to this show and type out everything that they're saying. Man, I hate my life. All right. So tell me the story about coffee that's dark as night on a moonless night, midnight on a moonless night, black as your soul. Tell me the story. I wanted to hear that.
So when I first got elected, remember, I replaced the chair of finance,
Right.
who was the 16-year incumbent. Remember that?
I remember that, Mr. Vitamin D. I remember that.
Right. And because we couldn't organize for an entire month, they didn't know what office to put us in, because usually an organization happens or is supposed to happen before session starts, and then they put everyone in the respective offices, right? Well, because that hadn't happened, they just said, you'll resume the office that your predecessor was in. So I was in the chair of finance, huge office. And it has
palatial,
like 3 different rooms. And I was in the back. We tease about a disco ball dropping from the ceiling. Doesn't exist, but we joke about it. And I'm back in my office, and my staff is fielding people because people that were coming to Juneau still had the mindset about this being the most powerful legislator. And there was someone that had come up to my staff that was just trying to make small talk. And they said, yeah, people who drink black coffee have psychopathic tendencies. And was just really carrying on about that.
Meanwhile, she's sitting there sipping. Really?
And I couldn't help myself. So when it was time for this individual to come back in my office to meet me, my staff says, Rep Vance, would you like your coffee? And I just chimed in, why, yes, black, please. And the look on his face. And the irony is that what I didn't know at the time is that was my predecessor's staffer of 6 years, who became my opponent and is now working again in the legislature. And he just won re-election to the Homer Electric Board. Oh. He's a very nice guy. But I got him that day.
You think he's a psycho? He thinks you're a psychopath because you drink black coffee. Oh man,
So now I'm like,
yes, black. Only black is my soul. Yeah, you should have just looked at him and said, "Yes, I like it black as my soul." All right. Sarah, we're going to talk a little bit about the potential for special sessions, and then I'll give you the last few minutes to talk about whatever you're personally focused on here in the last few days. You know, any bills that are still sitting or anything else that you want to get are good. Geez, Harold, you just joined. Are you going to be a wet blanket immediately? God, we've been talking about all this political stuff for like an hour, and we talk about black coffee for 2 minutes, and he's like, well, I guess this place is going to hell. Yes, Harold, it is. Yes, it is. Man, it's just like, how do you even, it's just, oh, man. Yes. Well, black coffee.
Coffee stat.
Yeah, I know. Black coffee is best because you can still slug it down cold. I'll tell you, I actually drank a cup of coffee on Monday that was a day and a half old that had some other stuff in it because I just don't care. I just don't care. I mean, I was like, yep, it's caffeine. Hit it. Yeah, that's it. Right into the vein. I hate to waste it. All right. Anything else here? What do we got going on? Scrolling
What
back.
were we talking about?
I don't know. It was black coffee. That was the important thing, was the black coffee. Jack is out in Soldotna trying to sell some onions. Oh, the Shriners onions are out for the Vidalias. I actually ended up with one already, and I'm going to get a couple more. See if I can keep them. How long I can keep them before they start to go bad, because I love the Vidalia onions. So go find yourselves a Shriner spot in Soldotna, Wasilla, Matsu, Fairbanks, and get yourself some onions because yum. You should get the Bloody Mary mix. I'm sorry, Sarah, don't listen. The Bloody Mary mix, if they have some, it's so delicious. One year I bought like 5 bottles of it. It was so good. All right, we got to go.
We were talking about onions.
We were, but there's a Vidalia onion Bloody Mary mix that they had one year, and it was like, oh, so good.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Full disclaimer, he's only talking about me. Sarah is full of intellect. I'm just got the pinch. All right? That's just how it works around here. All right. Sarah Vance is our guest, and we are we're going to continue here. One final segment with her this morning. So, Sarah, special sessions. Historically, on an election year, nobody wants to touch special sessions with a 10-foot pole because they're going to be busy, right? I mean, the whole House is up for election. You got half the Senate. I mean, it's like everybody is going to be busy. But I've already heard the ramblings and the murmurings that there could be a special session. I mean, could they take it up on Thursday? Could it be an immediate thing just to get it done and over with so that they can move on? I mean, the governor could veto stuff and there might be a special session that comes back then. I mean, this could be a messy election season because of all that. So tell me about what you think of the potential. You mentioned energy is one, education. Although I think the legislature should just stay out of the energy thing and let the LNG import thing start. I mean, let's just get it going. We know it's going to be cheaper than anything else in the short term, and we know it'll fix that short-term crisis. Then we can work on some other things at our leisure. Nothing good ever comes out of this hurry, short term, we got to do something now scenario. But you tell me, what do you think?
Well, I think you just said it. And, nothing comes good out of hurry. We just need to get something. And that's why I think there would likely be a special session, but I don't see it happening immediately. I think it would be happening later in the summer and the fall. We don't want it to interfere with the elections, obviously, because that's important to everyone. But with the energy crisis, that has to be addressed. And in my mind, there needs to be a little bit more time to kind of put things in order. The people are expecting that the legislature take action. We need to provide kind of a framework and get things going because
wait, did you just say that you need to do something? I mean, it's a crisis, so we need to do something. I mean, because again, let me be honest. I understand that there's a problem. The problem is coming. I don't know if it's risen to the level of crisis. I think there's people who are saying it is a crisis, but I don't know is that it's necessarily risen to that level yet. They say it's a crisis and then hold their hand out to the government and say, now we need some money or royalty relief or whatever. But we know that LNG, according to all the things that have come out, is still going to be cheaper in the short term specifically and potentially even in the long run. So why aren't we just pushing towards that instead of coming back to the government to come up with a solution where they basically have to give away money to somebody?
So the Cook Inlet is really the focus, and they're looking right now. Leadership is looking at the potential of providing tax royalty relief because there's plenty of gas in Cook Inlet, but it's just not economically viable right now, and that is our best solution for energy. However, like Homer Electric was the first to have the lease expire on its natural gas, and the utilities are looking to have to import natural gas, at least on the short term. We don't want that. So we have to figure out how we're going to address this because, there's we're on a very short timeline. So it is a very serious situation because we don't want our ratepayers to have to take the brunt of this. On the peninsula, HEA rates have already gone up, and we see that this could likely happen all across the state, especially in the rail belt. So the legislature does need to be a part of this, but they are looking at consultants to say, hey, we want to be serious about this and not make foolish decisions. So they're looking to experts to figure out what's the best way to address this problem because we have a short term and a long term that we need to deal with. So I have deep respect for that, to not just try to do something, but that whatever we do, it needs to be done right. So that's why I'm saying that a special session may be necessary, not in the immediate, but perhaps later in the summer or in the fall, so that we can put some things in place to get that production going again. Because like you said, that's going to be our best option. But they're having to make some hard decisions right now. And education is still looming, but in my mind, energy is really the one that we need to make sure it happens because it will affect every ratepayer.
I guess my question is, as far as free markets go, if it is cheaper to import LNG, it would be nice to use Alaskan gas. We've got plenty of gas. We just got to find a way to make it. And as you said it, the problem is it's not economical. So we're going to issue royalty relief or tax credits or full payments or non-repayable loans or whatever it is that we do. And is that money being factored into the actual cost? Because somebody has to pay for that. Mm-hmm. The PFDs will be cut more to pay for royalty relief or for anything else. So even if they do discover gas in the Cook Inlet, more supply, and they develop it, is it still going to be competitive with the imports? I'm all for making, Alaskan gas Alaskan, but I don't want to make an emotional decision on making sure that it's Alaska gas if it's still cheaper to import it from the, again, have the LNG come in now and then slowly develop without having to expend millions and millions of dollars in credits or payments or whatever. To me, the question should always be, how much is the actual cost? Not just, we've given you free stuff, now you figure the cost. No, what is the cost with what it costs them to do it plus the free stuff? Is it actually cheaper for Alaskans in the long run?
My answer is yes. If we do not import natural gas and we stay focused on Alaska natural gas, then that is definitely better for Alaskans because it contributes to our economy. If we start importing and make that a long-term decision, then what are we doing to ourselves? We have so much natural gas, that we could be exporting that. And there's still conversations about a natural gas line that could benefit Alaskans and be an export. So like I said, we have our own personal immediate solutions that we need to address, but also long-term that's going to benefit the state. And we're taking all of that into consideration. So the question that we need to keep asking is, whatever decision that we make for energy, does it provide reliability and does it reduce the cost to the ratepayers? Those are the two factors that are the most important to me, and making sure that that's going to benefit for generations, because this is significant. Whatever decision that we make will have impact 10, 20, 50 years from now.
All right. Well, I sure wish we'd gotten into this one a little earlier because I really want to discuss this further with you, but we're coming out of time, and I wanted to give you the last few minutes to talk about what you're focused on here in the final days. We've got about 3 minutes.
Well, I recommend you talk to Representative Ben Carpenter if you want to have a better discussion on LNG. I'm not that person. That's been his field, but no, I have 5 bills in the Senate, and we'll see how they go. We're working on things in the House and trying to prioritize the needs of the people and make sure that we are doing your work in this last week. So stay engaged. Look forward to seeing everybody when I get home. One more week, and then I'll be able to go.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, one
Right?
more week, because it could be. I mean, it literally could be Wednesday night, and you get up Thursday morning, and special session is tomorrow. Have a nice day. I mean, it really could be like that, and maybe that's even better. I don't know.
I doubt it. I doubt it. The senators always like to end on time in an election year, so that does give a bit of confidence. But I look forward to connecting with people face to face when I get home.
Yeah, it'll be good. A little bit of frustration. Is there anything people can do to help move your stuff out of the Senate? Is there people we can call? Is there emails we can send? Quickly here, we got about 90 seconds.
Yeah, call our senators and say, hey, I thank you so much for considering, these bills. Be specific about which one, whether it's the voter registration bill that's in Senate Finance. I have, quite a few others. And, right now, just contacting your legislator and say, please move these along because they're important to us. It does make a difference.
All right. Well, Sarah Vance. Oh man, I just it's almost over. It's almost over. I just keep telling myself that. I'm sure she does as well. Sarah, thank you for coming on board this morning and sharing with us. We appreciate you having some coffee and hanging out with us this morning, giving us your thoughts on what's happened at the session, and we look forward to seeing you this summer down in Homer. Appreciate you coming on board.
Thanks, Michael.
Folks, we got more coming up. Tammie Wilson is our guest. I see her in the green room already. We will be back with more, talking about the special election in Fairbanks and all the things that led to it and the aftermath. What does it mean? That's all coming up next. The Michael Duke Show. Be kind, love one another, live well. If you got to go to work, we'll see you in an hour or two. If not, back here with more. Okay, 2 words for you, Sarah. Free markets. Right?
Yes.
I mean, you say that, Alaskan gas, it boosts the economy, but if the government is the one that's propping up all the development of the private economy, then the government becomes the purveyor of they're the ones that are, if a free market says the gas is cheaper by a significant amount to import it, then we should be doing that. And I know that may be like, well, people could lose their jobs. Well, that's what happens in a free market as things change. If we could find a way to develop and explore, and again, the additional costs of, if it's $200 or $250 million in tax credits, which means that money won't be seen by the state, which means they have to make it up somewhere else, like your PFD, then who actually pays?
Well, Michael, I don't think people are talking about tax credits, but if we don't take action, your PFDs will be going to pay for your utility bill.
Even royalty credits, because even royalties means they don't pay the royalties to the state, right? That's what it means when they say they get royalty relief. That means they don't pay. That would have been money that the state would have taken in. So instead, they have to offset that income that they don't take in with something else, which again means they're going to take it from the easiest source of money, which is the PFD. Right
now, though, the exploration and the extraction isn't happening. So we're not getting the royalty. So if we can remove some of the obstacles, because Alaska has some of the highest corporate tax rates, we have a lot of roadblocks that don't allow the free market to truly be free, then we're not getting that revenue anyway. And if we don't do something, any dividend will be going to pay for the high utility bills. That's the reality, and we're trying to prevent that. So This is someone said it sounds like a boondoggle. What we're trying to avoid is a boondoggle. And like I said, I think I am the last person who is an expert in this to be talking to. Representative Carpenter has been deeply engaged in this and will be able to provide, a lot more insight. But, coming together to find a solution on energy is significant. And we don't want to be relying on importing natural gas when we are flush with it here in the state that can benefit our own people.
Right. I just don't want us to make an emotional decision versus a practical and a free market decision. And that's the problem, because your argument could be applied to food production. I mean, farmers lost their jobs. Farmers lost their farms when food started to get imported from outside more and more, and it became cheaper and cheaper, and that happened. And today we produce almost none of our own food compared to what we did 50 years ago here in the state. And so the same argument that you're making right now could be applied to food production. So does the government get involved in that and provide subsidies or credits or monies for those? And again, who pays? Well, we all end up paying in the long run, because it's all baked up either into the price, into new taxes, into takings of the PFD. And while I support the idea of food security and food independence, the idea that somehow the free market can't source that out and we need the government to come in and intervene is, again, part of my problem. That's the point that I'm making there.
Agreed. We have to be independent. But that's the other aspect here, is that if we start relying on importing natural gas when we need it, and they can cut it off. But if we have our own, then we have control of that. Just like with the food. I think we remember with the pandemic when the governor got the phone call from the Port of Seattle and said, we're not going to be sending barges. And that was eye-opening, and said, we need to start focusing on growing more food in Alaska and encouraging the people, hey, have your vegetable garden, right? Now, granted, people can't have their own, extract their own natural gas, but there's been other renewable energy, which I like options, but we're trying to find our solutions for Alaska so we can be independent. We have it right here. How can we best bring that forward to benefit the people? And I'm not for the subsidies either. I want it to last and to be able to be self-sufficient. And I think that's why we've hired consultants to come in and say, what's actually going to work? Because nobody wants to be dishing out credits that we owe that got us nothing in return. So this is being a very deliberate process on energy. And that I am hopeful for that people are not making knee-jerk reactions.
Well, we'll have a deeper conversation on this, because this is, again, to me, a question of, there's a lot of what if going on in this. And so we need to talk more about this, but I know you got to go. I appreciate you coming on board. As always, it's my pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. Good luck this final week, and we'll see you again soon. Okay.
Have a good morning.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. Sarah Vance, our guest. Tammie Wilson is in the green room. Tammie, are you there? There you go.
I am here.
Okay, I didn't see your picture until just now. All right, just want to make sure that the audio is working and everything's good, and you and I will. We may gloat a little bit here in the next segment, but I kind of want to have you walk me through this whole thing again, and then we can do the victory lap here when we get close to it. So if you're ready to go, I'm ready.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. All right. Well, hold the line. I'm going to put her back into the green room here, and we're going to get things ready to rock and roll. I mean, am I wrong, folks? Am I wrong? She just said they could withhold the gas. They could cut us off. I mean, I don't know who the they is in that regard. But should we pay 2 or 3 times the cost for something on the premise that one day somebody may create a problem? I just don't know. This whole thing it really bothers me. So, but I think we'll have a deeper conversation about this. The free market is the answer, not the problem, which is what a lot of these people seem to act like it's the problem. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
Sounds just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Welcome to hour 2 of the Thursday edition of the show. We are ready to go. We just finished up with Sarah Vance from down in Juneau, giving us the scoop on the last few days of the session, what she expects, and what has gone on so far. We got into a really interesting discussion on the energy issues in the very last segment of the show. Unfortunately, I wish we'd gotten into it a little bit sooner. We could have, done a little bit more of a deep dive on it, but we will come back to that. I'm sure the potential for a special session right now on energy issues seems pretty high. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. So we'll see how that works out as we move forward, and maybe we'll have some deeper discussions on this and see where we need to go. All right. We're going to continue on in this hour, though. We're moving things up a little further north. We're going up into the interior. Tammie Wilson, former borough assemblywoman, former legislator, who has been an advocate and a stalwart on things like the tax cap. Tammie and I have worked together for many years on things from everything from the wood burning ordinances to tax caps and everything else. And I brought her on to talk about the recent vote this last Tuesday, the special election on busting the tax cap for a $10 million ask for the schools. And that's how it was phrased. That's not really how it works, but that's how it was phrased. And of course was framed as a save our schools. Now that special election crashed and burned in a significant way, but I want to talk about how we got there and what the mechanics were of it. And then we can talk about the vote and everything else, and then what Tammie sees in the future. So let's jump over right now. Tammie Wilson is our guest. And she joins us this morning right now. Good morning, Tammie. How are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm good. I mean, you should be good. That was a pretty significant event on Tuesday. And I want to say congratulations to you on that to begin with. And just to preview, in case people haven't heard, the ballot measure, the proposition to override the tax cap for that $10 million failed overwhelmingly. 2-1, more than 2-1 margin, no voting on that, which I expected it to fail. That was in my heart of hearts. I was cautiously optimistic because people are stressed. It's an inflationary environment. People are worried about all kinds of things, and the borough was saying they needed more of their money. I felt pretty confident that it was going to fail, but a 2-1 was even more than I could hope for. And so I feel pretty good about that. But Tammie, I want to talk first. Can you walk us through, especially those of us who are, I'm a property owner in Fairbanks, but I wasn't really fully following this early on. So can you walk us through this? Because this was still kind of coming to fruition before you left the assembly, right? So can you, can you walk us through the very beginning of this, how this came about and the justification for it? And the steps of the mayor finding more money, and yet they still continued. And so walk us through this whole thing and give us the background.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a perfect storm. With the high CPI last year, but we have what's actually, we call it a tax cap. It's actually a revenue cap. How much money, it determines how much money that the borough can spend each and every year. So you take what we spent last year, you add in the CPI, new construction, and a few other types of things, and that gives the cap of how much the borough can spend. Now, we don't tell the borough what they can spend it on. They could pretty much spend it any way that they want to, but it does cap how much revenue. And, even when you were on the assembly, right, it was like, oh, we're below the cap. We're millions and millions of dollars,
right.
And we're so proud of ourselves. And then all of a sudden, last year, they're saying because of us that we're on the assembly, that we cut the budget by $20 million. You know what the budget would have looked like if anybody had cut it? $20 million. I mean, excuse me, I don't even know where they got that from, where they even got that figure from. So all of a sudden they're short, right? And they need $10 million more. And so this special election was, again, like you said, about schools, and they can't dedicate for that. Excuse me. It's been a long 75 days. We've been talking and yelling on the street for a while. But basically what got us here is a mayor who likes to spend money. So his budget in the meantime came out, $10.1 billion increase besides the special election. So now we're looking at doubling the amount of money that's going to cost us in our property taxes. Not now $100 per 100,000, $200. So, we brought it to the people, right? On the revenue cap, can you afford to pay more property taxes? And we made sure, it wasn't about the schools. It really was about how to pay, for this. Because the schools, we already know, they have to do something different, right? We're losing population here. Schools are about 60% full. There are a lot of issues that are that's going to have to happen no matter what. But I'll grant you 68% saying no. That was probably even more than we thought it would be. We still have 2,000 votes to count. Doesn't matter. Right. They will count them, but it won't change the outcome of what it is. And I think actually that percentage will grow. We have a lot of question ballots.
Yeah. The problem here is of course we had a school district. We had Melissa Burnett on Monday talking about it from a school board perspective. And she talked about how, and I'm paraphrasing here, but she talked about how this is really kind of a self-inflicted wound. The school district made decisions that were short-term gains for long-term problems, and including new contracts and things like that, where she had warned the superintendent that if we do this, this is going to create some problems down the road. And he said, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The problem is they could see the bridge when they made the decision. And that's where we're at. We spent one-time money on things that we shouldn't have spent one-time money on, including salaries and other things. Then all of a sudden we have a shortfall because the one-time money has run out. And that's part of where this came from. And so it initially was a $10 million shortfall. Now, in the meanwhile, Mayor Ward, who, as you said, really loves to spend money, did miraculously find $13 million laying around in the couch cushions, which leads to a whole nother question of how many more accounts have lapsed funds in them out there that we're just not paying attention to. That should be the first question that every assembly member asks. But found the $13 million and said, hey, look, we've saved the day. We can write you a check right now for 9.2 of this 13 million, and then we can find the thing or whatever. Yet the school board just ignored that and said, no, we need to continue on with a special election. Did you hear the justification? Did you hear the reasoning why we found the money to fill your hole, but now you still want to go after the taxpayers for even more? Have you heard the justification why they decided that they were going to continue on that?
So it wasn't the school board; it was the assembly that did that. And no, that's okay. The school board does a lot of things too, but basically, what the assembly says, one-time funding, and we need to, have a more permanent fix. However, as you just talked to Rep Sarah Vance, they're not even done. We don't know what education is going to bring. At the last minute, Mayor Ward was like, well, I guess it could wait until October. And he couldn't get the votes to do that. But I want to make sure we don't miss the most important part of this. And that is, this was a citizens initiative, the tax cap. Every 2 years we get signatures. On the opposite years, we take a vote. And most of the statutes aren't that clear, but this one is. This statute specifically says you can't change or modify an initiative for 2 years. And we're within that 2 years. So this vote that we took wasn't just really for Fairbanks. It was for the state and for everybody who's ever been involved in an initiative. Because, you've done it before, and doing it on a local level is hard enough. We just got done with the ranked choice voting one statewide, and to think that somebody could just come in and determine that, well, it's not enough or it's not the right way to go for whatever reason that they want to, would have had a huge impact, not just for Fairbanks, but for everyone.
Right. Well, there definitely would have been a challenge. Some kind of if they had won in this, there would have been the argument to be made that they were trying to modify the tax cap within that 2-year cycle, and they couldn't. I mean, there would have been a court challenge. It would have gotten messy. It would have been, it would have been problematic. But that doesn't seem to stop them from wanting to go out and get more money.
Yeah.
And then the disingenuousness of it. The disingenuousness of this idea of when I was in Fairbanks, I saw all the signs. Well, not all the signs. There was only a handful of signs, actually, but they all said, they kept saying, save our schools. And they framed it as if this is a guarantee. If we get this $10 million, the schools are going to be saved. The $10 million is going to go to the schools. But that's not how the money works in those situations. The money has to go into the general fund, and then it's appropriated by the assembly. They could spend it on ballparks, or they could add another wing to the Taj Mahal of the Puppy Palace. I mean, they could do whatever they want with it. There's no guarantee that it would be spent on, regardless of what your expectations were. They could spend it on anything they want. And that was, again, that idea is undercut by this whole thing of save our schools, save our schools. It's a disingenuousness that I find the people on that side of the argument making, that, they're like, oh, well, it could, they're going to do it. They're going to vote my way. Well, what if the assembly changes? What if the mayor changes? What if the whole direction of the borough changes? Will you then be happy that they'll spend the $10 million on something else? What if they spend it on tax relief? I mean, what's going to happen there? So your thoughts on that?
And they kept calling it temporary. It was anything but temporary because, again, if it would have passed that $10 million, the only way, that didn't go up 10 million. And I love this because the mayor said it. Well, we might not spend it. And we're like, when has government not spent money that they got, but what happens, it goes right into the formula. So they would have spent that 10 million. And that's why it was a special election. It would have gone in this year's budget, which would have been in now a $20 million 1 year, increase. And COVID, helped get us here, right? All that free money that they call it, that's exactly what the school district did. And the 3 years I was on the assembly, we continuously said, how are you going to fill that money, that those things? Because they did it, like you said, for operating. They brought in more teachers, they brought in more aides, they brought in things that were going to continue. It wasn't like fixing up the schools or, reshuffling, within
right.
that. So
everybody
knew we would get here. Everybody knew we were going to get here.
Not one-time things. We're going to paint the school. We're going to be one and done for the next 20 years. The school will be painted in. No, it was, they brought in reoccurring costs.
Absolutely.
And then acted shocked when they're come to the next year and they're like, oh, well, we need more money for this. Well, then why did you spend the one-time money on reoccurring? I mean, in Anchorage, they did it even worse. They took all that money and they paid all the teachers with it. And then they came back and said, well, now we've got a $26 million hole. I mean, of course you do. Of course you do. Who is your financial advisor? Because I could have told you that, and I barely graduated high school. Okay, I could tell you that spending one-time money on reoccurring costs was not going to end well. But then they act like, again, it's our problem. Well, we've created it. Now it's your problem.
Well, and our schools are 60% full. I mean, all but one. Barnett, which is a magnet school, it's 101% full. And we've said the same thing. You've got a school over here that obviously people want, they have a big waiting list, and a magnet school, different than a charter school, is completely under the control of the borough. Why don't you go make more? Maybe you will bring students back because now you're offering something that they want. But instead, what's happening, especially up here, more people are going to homeschooling. They don't like, the different things that are happening, and have found out through COVID that they could do it, right?
Right.
They could still work and they could still teach their kids and the different kind, and then they were in control of, their education. But, now for the fun part, right? So and I think people are a little bit confused right now because of what we just did. So we saved the tax cap is what we did, on Tuesday. Now, just ironically, right, the revenue cap, comes up for renewal October 1st.
Right.
And so
now they have to vote yes.
After us again, right? They're going to try to just break it completely. And so, it's kind of like deja vu. Okay, how do we repaint the signs? Because that, I mean, to me, that was what was so fascinating. This has got to be like the number one grassroots, portion of it, which I think it just drove APOC crazy, because people literally took old signs, right, from other campaigns, and they repainted them, and repurposed them. I mean, one of my favorite ones was we had no on the oil tax, a couple years ago. I had the November date. They changed the November to, the May date, let the vote, let the no, and then cut off the rest of it, right? And end up with like half a sign on it. But it's because people wanted to be involved in it. I mean, people probably haven't been voted in so long that I think the reason we have I think it's like 700, something like that, question ballots. And so people know what a question ballot is. It means I'm not really sure where I'm supposed to vote. And we told them just vote, right? We don't care where.
Just go into a polling location and vote, right?
Yep. Just fill out your little envelope, kind of like an absentee, and they'll look you up, and that vote, will count at that point. So, people wanted to make sure their voices were heard. But sadly enough, the reason is because of the expense, right, of living here. You know how that was with, the oil, how it's going up and up.
I know how it is. One of the major reasons why I left Fairbanks, specifically for that reason. All right, Tammie Wilson's our guest. We're going to continue here in a moment. The Michael Dukes Show continues. Common Sense Radio. Back with more after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Tammie Wilson is our guest. I'm sorry, Layla just dropped a novel here in the chat room here. What did she say? I can't see the whole thing. Yesterday, a coworker accused me of caring more about money than education. He'd actually learned what was at stake, and I was just zombie voting. Maybe there was an excuse for a tax cap in the 1980s, but expenses have increased enormously since then, and the budget hasn't gone up. Also, the budget hasn't gone. Oh my God. Also, he characterized it as a one-time increase that would cost about $30 a year on a house of $100,000. Next year, we'll pass the tax cap again. It'll be fine. Obviously your coworker is a moron, but it is what it is.
Well, that's how they sold it. They sold it as a one-time, it'll get us out of trouble here, but it changes, the 10 million goes into the formula, and, next year we would have started 10 million. Well, actually now 20 million with the budget the borough just put out there. And that would be the new amount come next year. And the sad thing, next year, they're going to start at the cap, right? There's no wiggle room. The mayor took every dime of that, added employees on top of it all. And for some reason, they're having issues right now with negotiations, with the workers. I mean, they have nothing to negotiate. They literally took every last dime in the budget the mayor just put out.
Right. It is at the cap. There's no wiggle room at all. You can't negotiate. You have grown government to the absolute overall size that it can be. There can be no increases for inflation. This is a future problem that's going to come back to bite them. But again, this is the Parkinson principle of government. They will spend every dollar available and then some if they can get their hands on it. I mean, luckily the cap is in place. I mean, Donna Gilbert did the math. Well, it must have been 8-9 years ago. I had her on the show and we were talking about it, and she did the math, and the tax cap had saved the ratepayers in Fairbanks had saved them something like $250 million over the course of the 35 years or whatever it was at the time that the tax cap had been in place. And it's because it is that downward pressure on government. Otherwise, it would have exploded. I mean, look at what's happening in Anchorage. $700 million budget for the city of Anchorage, up from when I got here 10 years ago, it was $500 million. So they've increased almost $200 and something million, $250 million in 10 years. That's just not sustainable. But that's government's position. That's how government works.
And the school district loses $2 million because of the homeschooling, thing that's going on right now. So if that doesn't get fixed, they literally, because they make money on top of it all, they make money off homeschoolers instead of putting it in, to allotments, because if they don't have all those, additional costs, They literally profit off of their homeschool program by
Yeah,
$2
you
million
think they'd
a
want to
year.
convert it all to homeschooling because they get a chunk of money, but the homeschoolers get a fraction of it,
Yeah.
and the rest of it goes to the school district. One of the interesting things that came out last week before, was a piece in the paper from about the Anchorage school districts, and had Jim Anderson, who's one of the financial guys, and Brian Jarrett, who is the district superintendent, and they both admitted that the reason that they're closing schools is not a budgetary issue. It's an enrollment issue. And in fact, Jim Anderson was quoted as saying, it was a mistake for us to frame this as a budgetary issue to begin with, because it's not. But and I asked Melissa, and we're seeing the same thing. She said that the average enrollment and capacity rate in the schools is about 45%. And you've got a few that are at 60, and you mentioned Barnett, which is counted, so that's what's partially skewing that average. But she said most of the schools are between 45 and 50% capacity. That's not sustainable. You can't have a school that's at 50% capacity and expect that you can continue to pay for all the overhead and everything else. You have to start consolidating that kind of stuff. And but people, it's an emotional thing. You saw what happened when they closed the 500 comments on the post in Facebook about Ben Eielson closing, and everybody was lamenting my school, this and that, and why aren't we paying more? And it's an emotional thing. It has nothing to do with reality, financial reality, fiscal reality. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know you want to say something, but I got to cut you off because we're about to rejoin. I got long-winded. My bad. We're going to continue here with Tammie Wilson. Let's continue on. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Here.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Nope, I'm not your daddy, nor do I play one on TV, but it is not your daddy's talk radio. It is the Michael Duke Show. Tammie Wilson is our guest, former assemblywoman, former representative, still current advocate, and all around a good lady to have on your side when you're fighting some of these big issues of big government. Tammie, we were just talking about the schools and the problems and the enrollments, and I mean, there's a much deeper issue that has caused. There's multiple reasons that this thing came about, but the bottom line is mismanagement by the school district, the fact that we have lower enrollments than ever, and they're continuing to decline. We've got low capacity schools. We've got to make some choices, and these people just don't want to make the choices, the hard choices, because as Melissa Burnett mentioned on Monday, the school board member, most of the schools are at 45 to 50% capacity. There's a few at 60. You mentioned Barnett is at 100, which again skews the average overall if you're looking at them on an average. But if you look at the majority of schools, they're at 45 to 50% capacity. That means they have to consolidate and close some schools. And nobody wants to do that because it hurts, because it's painful, because there's an emotional thing tied to it. But they're going to have to start making some hard decisions here in the near future.
But don't forget, it's not just a school issue. It's a borough issue, because the borough's doing the same thing. They continue to grow the borough, right? $20 million in public works since the mayor has been the mayor. And public works for us, because we're second-class borough, unlike Anchorage, is mostly in projects that we're charging back to ourselves, like, the Puppy Palace. The Puppy Palace alone is over $2 million just to design it. That's not even like putting anything down. We bought property, right? Took it off the tax rolls. That was huge, Now we take another $2-something million just to design it, add like 3 or 4 spaces, right? I mean, they haven't seen money. And then we get this big thing. Oh, we can't sell land because we have this issue with the state not letting it happen. And that's untrue too. But because we have one bad issue, we hire another person to do what? Sit around and figure out, what they should have already done. So the borough's increases have been almost worse than the school district. So what are they going to do next year? I mean, the automatic steps that you have, for employees and other contracts that are already in place, they are literally to the cap. And unless they decide to stop taking our money. And I think the worst part is they have over $35 million. Not they do, we do. It's our money in savings when they're out there asking us for another $10 million. I mean, I
Right.
think people just saw that, there wasn't a dime that the borough not just did, that loved, but they were going to spend it immediately or put it away for savings for them. Because how much money, Michael, do you have to get $13 million that you don't know you have in dividends and interest? Gotta be a lot of money stuck away.
It reminds me of the Bill. It reminds me of the Bill Walker. Oh, hey, by the way, we found $260 million in the couch one year. I mean, who is not sweeping all of those accounts every 6 months to just verify what money's left over? I mean, you just found $13 million. Oh my God, you are fired, kind of thing. All right, but I want to get onto something a little more infuriating, and you and I have had conversations about this off the air. But during this process, one of the things that really burns my cookies is the fact that you had public money, tax dollars being expended in this election to educate, if you can't hear the air quotes, educate the public on the benefits of this issue. And first of all, you're spending public money to advocate for the outcome of an election, which is patently illegal, but they're doing it anyway. They've gotten away with it. And then you found out at one point that they were not even being required to put paid for by or other things on. Talk to us about this, because this is if I said, here's $1,000, Tammie, I want you to go out and get some signs and do stuff like that, you'd have to report it to APOC. I would have to report it to APOC. They'd have to put the paid for by Michael Dukes on the thing. I mean, you have to do all that stuff. But these guys didn't have to do any of that, and they're using our dollars for it.
So we actually asked APOC. They gave us, a memo that said, because they didn't say yes or no, and there's a school board, so the borough, the school district, cities can supposedly educate us. Doesn't matter if it's truthful. Doesn't matter if it's, anybody could read it and know that they were advocating for yes. I mean, it was not even close on it.
When
so
it says
spent about $6,000 in radio.
When it says save our schools, Prop A, save our schools, that means vote yes for Prop A, right? They don't have to say yes on it. It just means, and they were spending money, like you said, on radio and other things. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that just, again, they are trying to influence the outcome of an election. You don't have to say yes or no at that point.
But worse yet, too, they were texting or sending emails so when you go to school, you sign all this paperwork, right? So the teacher can get a hold of you if necessary. I don't think any parents think, well, you're going to be able to lobby me, whether we were talking about the legislature when they had the education bill up or for this, and they use those lists too to try to get you to vote their way. I mean, that's just wrong. Anyway, like you said, here we're grassroots. We're trying, individuals have to claim their own. You try to have a few groups so that we can get, more money put together. The APOC rules were meant to be put there so people knew where you were collecting money and where you were spending it. But on this one, it's become so convoluted, that I'll be honest. I've ran many times, right? But the way you file as a candidate is so different than it's on a ballot measure. So right now, we're somewhat, got a few issues we're trying to figure out because they didn't put the special election on APOC. We couldn't even mark the box on it, but yet it's our fault that we didn't report, in certain ways that they made it. But when it gets away from not allowing grassroots efforts to happen, that's just wrong, right? I mean, that's what elections are about, is getting people involved, being able to put your money into whatever it is that you want to advocate for. And I think this one was a perfect example where we're being hindered by our own rules that were put there. And believe it or not, that was because of ranked choice voting. A lot of those extra things that came in on reporting, everybody in November will have a chance to reverse. And I think that will also help us. But, there's nothing better than a hometown election, right? Yeah. That it's just us doing our own thing and making sure that people understood, what was going on. And it was fascinating. It was really, we could not put enough, Barbara Haney, God bless her. I've never seen so many signs in so many different ways. I mean, and just using what we had because, we had a finite amount of money and we showed the borough, even with a finite amount of money, you can make it go a long way because we didn't need everything nice and shiny,
Right.
like they always want.
Right. Well, now it's in the rearview mirror again, 2-1 going down in flames, 2-1, and more than 2-1. And probably when the dust settles, it'll be even more than that. But what are you hearing from the public? I mean, first of all, were you surprised because like I said, I was cautiously optimistic thinking people just can't take much more of this. They're going to vote no because it's with their pocketbook and it's going to be an issue. I thought it would be closer. What was your take? Did you expect it to come out this way, but just not with this amount, or what was your expectation?
So we were totally dependent, right? I mean, I love my community, but for part of them, you just really have to upset them to get them to vote. And it's like, did this upset them enough to get them out to vote? So yes, I thought it would be closer. However, the tax cap has passed around 60 to 62%, every 2 years without a whole lot of, anything but the candidates saying, they're in favor of it, which that's fascinating. The people who put it on said they were always in favor of it. And then all of a sudden they're not on it. Yeah, I totally was. And I think when we are able to look at who actually voted, I think we're going to see a lot of people who, hasn't voted in years and years.
Right.
And that's kind of also what got us there.
Right. Well, remember the old phrase is if you can't motivate, you agitate. That's what happens. And so people were agitated because, again, I think people are up against the wall. I mean, we got the inflation problem coming out of COVID. People are still struggling, everything else. And the borough walks out with their hand out one more time and says, give us more. That's what they want. And so that's why I had the expectation of it not happening. And I think the people have spoken. That doesn't mean that we can stop pushing, right? Because
we do it all over again in October. I mean, if we don't, if we do not renew the revenue cap now, we don't have to say we think the borough might raise, how much money we pay. We now know that they will, and that's huge. And the Puppy Palace, it is still there. They're still that is the number one project. People are just like, are you kidding me? From veterinarians to animal lovers, I don't get Republicans, Democrats, Independents, $33 million, for something that's not even really going even toward the animals. It's resounding no. And it's still in the budget. That's just crazy. I mean, we did 6 hours of testimony, hundreds and hundreds, of emails, still had this battle to go forward. Have they learned anything? Oh, absolutely not, and we're 7-2 on the borough, and we've got to change the borough assembly, or we're going to continuously have to have these fights almost twice a year just to be able to afford to live here. And that is so wrong.
So the Puppy Palace, the Taj Mahal, is moving forward. It is.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way to stop it at this point.
There's a way to stop it. We may have to have a different kind of initiative, but with the current assembly we have, you have to change them out, or else you're going to have. And it's not just about the $33 million. How much money is that going to take in energy? I mean, this thing is huge.
Well, that's right? The thing. What's the fiscal note on this building? This building costs $33 million. So what's the fiscal note on maintenance, upkeep, and operation of the building? Is there any? I haven't looked at the number.
We don't want to talk about that, right? Because that's irrelevant. We'll just get it out of you.
What? I mean, they don't have.
We always build everything in the state. I know when I was a legislator, they'd come. We need to build this. Nobody ever talked about. Well, now how are you going to maintain it, right?
Right.
Just paying the basics to it. Oh, we'll worry about that later.
Does Fairbanks still not have $250 million in deferred maintenance in the borough?
Oh, yeah.
So that's not changed. So they still owe $250 million in deferred maintenance, and they're going to add another $33 million building. And there's no fiscal note attached to it to tell you how much it's going to cost on an ongoing basis.
Oh, Michael, it'll be years before we have to start worrying about roofs and, and heating and all the rest. It's brand new. How much more can it cost us? Yeah.
My head's going to explode. All right. One final segment coming up here. Tammie Wilson is our guest. Holy God. We'll continue the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Tammie Wilson is our guest. Yes, we've been going on about the dog pound for weeks. It's a $33 million dog pound. I
It
mean,
started at 18, not too long ago. It is already, and so it's not even 33 anymore, right? Because we're not talking about next year. You're talking several years still down. So that thing is just going to grow, continuously grow.
And they're spending $2 million on the planning of it.
Yep.
They don't have a fiscal note. They haven't, I mean, because that was actually something, I don't think that's legal, because that was something that I fought for when I was on the assembly, is that we made sure that there was fiscal notes with any new construction that actually gave a snapshot of what the actual costs were going to be for upkeep, maintenance, and operation. If they're not,
that might happen once they actually fund the whole thing. Right now, they're still in the design stage, so I don't know where.
So wait, they're gonna spend $2 million on the design phase and then decide whether to appropriate or whether to appropriate. Who?
I think that's pretty much right. Yeah.
Why is the cart before the horse on that? I mean, and did we need
not seen our assembly? Have you not met our mayor? And you really can say that with a straight face?
And what's, I guess I should ask because I don't know, but what's wrong with the current dog pound? What's wrong with the current animal control facility? It's too small. It's not big. It doesn't have the bright
they say it's too small. They say it needs maintenance, but we have a couple schools that have closed, right? And people have said that. We had a veterinarian actually step forward and say, you know, I'm selling my practice with maybe $10 million. You can bring it, you know, the little bit more that you need to beats $33 million. I mean, they have a surgical wing. We don't even have a veterinarian. Why would we have a surgical wing? It's not a hospital.
So you don't have a vet. So there's not even a vet on staff, but we have a surgical wing in the new Taj Mahal.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm so glad that all the property taxes that I'm paying in Fairbanks are going to benefit the community in such a unique and outstanding way. I don't even know what to say to this at this point.
Well, actually, we'll pay more for dogs than we will for children in school. But if this actually goes through, we'll pay more for an animal staying in a shelter, from my understanding, than we do for a child being in school.
Wow. Whose brainchild was this? Is there anybody that's got the mayor? The mayor? Yeah. He's such a disappointment to me. I mean, when he was in North Pole and stuff, I always thought he was a common sense kind of guy. And it's just, man, I don't even know what to say on that result. In the final segment here, Tammie, we're going to talk about, again, next steps, the reaction for people that you've talked to overall and all that kind of stuff. It's Melissa says, it's all about the puppies. Screw the kids. I roll. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it feels like at this point. I mean, I would love to be all things to all people, but somebody has to pay for it. And at what point, at what point do the people in Fairbanks go, whoa, wait a second. I mean, you're spending millions of dollars on public works projects, yet you have no road powers or anything else. So what does that mean? We're spending $20 million on parks and flowers and whatever, and then don't even get me started on the Carlson Center. The fact that they took over control of that, and that has become such an absolute goat rope for a facility that's supposed to be used. It's astonishing. I mean, this is
just another $1 million, of supplemental income that they need.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. It's not just that, because now they've got employees. Now they have more employees because they have to have employees at the Carlson Center. So it's not just the $500,000 or $600,000 a year in supplemental, because the Carlson Center was bringing money in and paying for themselves, and they had a company that was managing it and everything else. No, now they got to have a full slate of employees. All those people have got to have all the bells and whistles that any borough employee needs to have. So all the extras and the cushy stuff and everything else. And of course, then it's on their schedule. They decide, well, we could rent it out to you, but maybe not, because we've got other things that we have planned to do. And so now we can't take your $20,000 for the weekend event that you wanted to hold there or whatever. It's just, I'm aghast. I'm just really aghast by the whole thing right now. I'm glad I left Fairbanks. This just reminds me of what a good decision it was to leave Fairbanks, because wow. And like you said, with a 2 to 7 mix on the assembly of 2 conservatives to 7 progressives, how are you going to change that? How are you going to move that needle?
Well, it's called doing what we just did all over again.
Yeah.
One more time.
Well, and you and I talked about this a little bit the last election, how people just didn't seem to get out in the last election when the conservatives were up for re-election. And yet now we've seen this big overwhelming thing. Maybe this momentum can carry over, and we can pick this up when we get back on the radio. But maybe we can pick this up and move forward. You're being optimistic for someone who lives close to Anchorage. Mat-Su is the reddest district in the state. This is the this is the bastion of conservatism. Trust me, we are not like Anchorage. So that's the good news for me. All right, we got to go. Here we go. Back to it right now. Okay, Tammie Wilson is our guest. I thought my head was going to explode during the break. We just got more into this whole puppy palace thing, and I'm aghast that I feel for the people in Fairbanks. I feel for the people in Fairbanks right now who are going to be paying for this ridiculous nonsense. All right, Tammie. Final things we were just talking as we came out of the break there about the last election. This all comes down to one thing. This is really it part of it's laid at the feet of the school board, but also at the assembly. And as you said, you've got a 7-2 mix of the assembly right now, 2 conservatives to 7 progressives. I remember that feeling well because that's where I was at when I was on the assembly there at the very end. But something's got to change. Yet in the last regular election, when there were 3 conservatives up for a vote, nobody showed up. The turnout was excruciatingly low. None of those people, got back in the seats. But with this election happening, and you're saying that you think that when you look at the numbers, you'll figure out that a lot of these people were probably people who hadn't voted in a while or hadn't come out. How do we keep that momentum up coming into the next election this fall to try and swing the makeup of that assembly?
Well, we have the same issue, right? I mean, we have to come back out, save the tax cap. If you don't want the puppy palace, we need different people in there. I mean, I can't say enough about the people who came out and voted. I mean, the whole 75 days was about a community coming together, and it came from everybody, right? It really was about as nonpartisan as it can be. I think there was as many Democrats as Republicans as independents that just said enough's enough. And, they were willing to actually get involved, not just vote, but get involved, telling their friends, their families, making sure people got out. I mean, signs were everywhere. I mean, it was literally people saying, at some point we have to step up. Now, you're right. We have to take that momentum and, explain how we got to the May vote and why the October vote now, is so important right amongst the big November election, which people are going to be really looking at.
Right.
Try not to get lost in the fray of everything.
Right. Because, again, it's a 2-part problem. Not only do you have the election of the assembly coming up where you may be able to change out some of the players there if you get good candidates, but on top of that, you've also got the re-upping of the regular tax cap, the revenue cap, what we call the tax cap in Fairbanks. So you've got the re-upping of that. So don't grow weary in well-doing is what I'm saying. You've done good job on this one. You need to come out and vote in October for the municipal election to get all that, to get all that stuff taken care of. Because if we don't, more of this stuff is going to happen. Your bills will go up. The budgets will increase. They will bust the tax cap. Yes. Are you tired of fighting it? God, Tammie, how many times did you and I do the wood smoke stuff? We got so tired of doing the same thing over and over. And the tax cap. I carried a tax cap petition for 20 years around there and collected signatures and did that. How tired are we of that? But we can't stop because the minute we stop, they swoop in and win.
Right. So now we change from a no to a yes. Yes, we want to, the tax cap in place. Luckily, ranked choice voting will also be a yes. Yes, we want to repeal it. So those two major issues coming together, hopefully we'll be able to help each other to be able to do that. But I think the biggest thing is we don't have to guess now what the borough will do. Right before they'd be like, we don't need a tax cap. We would never, just spend money because we can. Now we know they will, right? So that part's gone. Whether it's to schools that they give the extra money to or more borough government, we know that there's never going to be enough, no matter how you look at it. And so I think helping people realize that it only took them 5 minutes to vote, if even that much, right? To be able to control the borough in a way I think a lot of people actually forgot, how much their vote does impact. And they may not be able to control everything, but, we may end up having to have some kind of initiative on the puppy palace if they go forward. Because, again, when the majority of people saying no, and you've got an assembly saying yes, and a mayor saying yes, sometimes the citizens initiative is all you can do is go out there, and plead your case and get the signatures and put it right back on there.
33 million is more than I've seen them spend on any of the elementary or high school. I mean, they haven't spent that much on a school.
No.
33 million. I mean, that's a monster project. What's been the reaction overall, Tammie? You're out and about, and you're a well-known face out there. What do people, prior to the election and since the election, what has been the reaction from the public that you've been involved with in your sphere of influence, or people who've come up to you to talk to you? What's the overall reaction and the feeling? Give me a man on the street feeling there in Fairbanks.
I think they're willing to keep the fight up. I really do. I think, we needed this win. I mean, because it feels like government is always running us over, and no matter what, we get outspent, and we probably got outspent on this, but we didn't get outworked, right? I mean, we were delivering signs up to probably even 2 days before the election happened. We won early vote by 300. Last year, we lost it by 1,500. I mean, a year's difference. And, part of it's messaging. I think part of it's our fault that we have really not got the right information out so people have a better understanding of what's happening in their own backyard. We're literally, it does help when you only have one issue to be able to do it. But I think the other part is, you kind of started with Rep Sarah Vance on energy. It is becoming so expensive to live here. And people, the biggest thing I kept hearing is, oh yeah, our mill rate, isn't as much, but they increased my assessment 20,000, 40,000 year after year. So I'm definitely paying more. So I think people are paying attention to what's going on. It's helping them understand what we can do to change. When do we testify? Where, do we try to bring in our say? And ultimately, if nobody listens like they did here, people actually want us to sue the assembly members who cost us all this money, the $125,000, for not listening. I mean, they were already told that this wasn't going to work, and they decided to go forward with it. But for us, it's really concentrating on October, having 3 good candidates for the assembly, 2 good candidates, for the school board, and making sure that our revenue cap, tax cap, stays in place.
Are you termed out? Are you eligible?
No, I was one of the victims from last year, so I'm not on the assembly. Yeah, we were the ones that didn't message very good, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I hope we find some candidates. I hope we find some candidates we can get behind. And I hope the messaging is we are spending up to the cap already. There is no wiggle room, and they want to bust it, as evidenced by this election in May. So if you want to protect the tax cap, that should be the messaging for that. And any candidate who's going to go out there should be taking that same messaging forward to say, this is who we have now. This is where we spend. Can you afford to pay any more in taxes? That should be the question.
And people, and I do feel for those who have their kids in school, because everybody wants to have their neighborhood school, the ones that they went to. So I understand that, but we can't afford to have schools half empty, because it's going to go to the school building or to the students. And, consolidation, when you get such a drop in enrollment, has to happen, really. And I hope that the school district, messaging wise, and Eielson's a good example. But the kids going from Eielson over to North Pole, the kids have even found out the more opportunities that they're going to have, right? They have more electives, more things that they're going to be able to do because the school's bigger. And this will allow the North Pole kids to keep those programs and Eielson to participate. And it was so wrong when they made it, about the money only, when really it was more about opportunity.
It was not a budget issue. It's an enrollment issue. And that's the
Yes.
same thing that the Anchorage School District has said. As I said earlier, the Anchorage School District has admitted the same thing. We should not have framed this as a budget issue. This is an enrollment issue.
Absolutely.
And until we get the truth, we're not going to know. And see, that's what they're doing. They're spinning it up. All right. 2 minutes, Tammie, for this. I mean, we've covered a lot this morning, but how can people help? How can people help? What do we need to do? Give us the exhortation here. 2 minutes.
Really, I just can't say it enough. Thank you to everybody out there. It wasn't just one or two people. We might have started it, but we could not have done it, with people just growing and the momentum going and helping put all the right information out there. What has to happen now is to realize that this was a huge win. People spoke, and now it's not forgetting that message over the summer. October 1st, will be here a lot quicker than you think it will be. They're going to try the same tricks of, look what you made us do, blah, blah, blah. We need to make sure that the truth is out there, realizing, what has to be done to be more efficient. And it's only going to happen if you keep talking to your relatives, everybody else. I mean, I went, I saw if my kids voted or if they didn't vote, and made sure that, they did, and everybody else did too. And then there's other things we're just going to have to start looking at these projects and do it. But we got to flip the assembly, and we got to save the tax cap again, here in October. And we got to just quit doing the things that we're doing that we know aren't efficient.
Well, yeah, you've got to save the tax cap, because if you don't, your taxes are going up. The budget is going to increase. They've already spent to the cap. There's no more room. It will go up, period. End of story. Full stop. Final question. Tammie, are you going to throw your hat in the ring for the fall? What?
Oh, I am. Yeah, Jimmy Cash and I both, said, okay, let's keep this thing rolling along, because, I mean, we always say, I used to say, well, people, deserve what they get. Well, we are those people, right?
Right.
When a vote goes a certain way, it's everybody. And we need to refocus on people. We're a second-class borough, and stop sticking our noses where it doesn't belong.
Oh, they desperately want to be a first-class borough. I mean, they desperately want that. I fought that. I fought that back in my day, and had to have the attorney back me up on that. They were so desperate to make those things happen. Well, Tammie, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Good luck. And thank you for all the hard work you put. I know this was a lot of work, and you did a yeoman's job on this. Donna would be proud. Thank you for coming on board. Hold the line for just a sec. Folks, we're out of time. Tomorrow is Firearms Friday. I can't wait. Chris Chang, Willie Waffle, maybe JD Too Chilly. We'll see you then. Be kind, love one another, live well. Oh my God. I am just reminded now how glad I am that I'm not on the assembly anymore, because I can't imagine. At the end there, the last few months on the assembly for me personally, after we lost a couple more. For a while there, it was pretty even, and then it kind of got lopsided against the more conservative side. And then by the end, and it was me and Lance Roberts. We were the last two on the assembly. That it was painful. I mean, you could have called me Dr. No, because that's pretty much what I said all the time, because all they wanted to do was spend money. And over the intervening 10 years, it's just gotten worse. And even with that short respite, when the conservatives were had a swing on the majority, even then it was hard and painful to try and get anything done. Something's got to change, because otherwise the wheels just come off the bus, and people will be like me. I left Fairbanks in part because of the costs and everything else, and taxes were a huge part of it.
Well, we have a 4-person mayor race, which is going to kill us to start with. An assembly that's just so out of touch, it's not even funny. But the shiny thing is, I mean, North Pole, this side of town, got out and voted. I mean, they voted like 90% no, 10% yes. I mean, it was that lopsided, and almost everything, kind of what we call the rural areas, kind of split Fairbanks in half, and, head toward North Pole Salsha area. So because about 2,000 people got out, more than they did last year. So it wasn't huge. It was who got out,
Well, but it was a special election. A 2,000 increase over a general on a special, that tells you something. That tells you something right there. That when the percentiles go, because a special election, generally the turnouts are usually very low for those. So people were motivated. So now we got to keep the fire burning and fire hot all the way into October.
Well, I think that's our plan is to look more deep and how the spending's going and saying, okay, here's some legitimate places that we can reduce, or here's how much it costs. Do you want to continue? Kind of like the animal shelter. How many more people we've added to parks and recreation. I mean, letting people know how much it is so they can determine if that's too much. But we have to keep those things going. You know how summer is. Everybody's going to forget everything in the summer, and we're going to have to start all over again. But what's in our win is we don't have to guess what they will do, right? Before, it's kind of like, this is what will happen. The borough will be like, oh, no, we won't do that. Now we know they will.
Yeah.
We have no doubt.
We'll be responsible. Yeah, we'll be responsible. Trust us. Well, wait, I can see it right now. You're up to the neck. You're done. You can't go any further.
Right.
And so that's all you need to know at this point. I'm hoping that more people, and I'm hoping that the people that got involved in the special election here stay fired up. And like I said, if you can't motivate, you agitate. And maybe that's the messaging that needs to go forward. How much more? Maybe the ad should read, how much more can you afford to pay in property taxes? If you vote for this person, then guess what? You'll have more property taxes because they've already spent up to the tax cap and can't go beyond without busting it. I mean,
what will a tax, society without a tax cap look like?
Exactly. And what would it look like without a tax? I mean, that's how all the
10 million was bad. What about 30 or 40 million? I mean,
and
literally you won't be able to live here. I mean, really could get to that point this fall.
Look at what just happened in Anchorage, where they passed one that was over their cap, and they're at $700 million, a $200 million increase in just 10 years.
Right.
Now, extrapolate that out. How does that look 10 years more from now? And of course, it's an accelerated curve, so it won't just be another 200 million; it'll be another 300 million.
It always increases more and more.
It'll be over $1 billion in less than 10 years at this rate. And who can afford that? I mean, again, one of the reasons why I left Fairbanks, there was a variety of reasons, but definitely the utility costs and the taxes were definitely there at the top of the list of the pros why I should move out. And I've said it. I saved $5,000 on utilities alone in the first 8 months of living down here. So
we've empowered people now. And I really think, I'm hoping that empowerment, because it really would have been a stinging loss if, the kind of, momentum we were finding and them not to be on top of this. So, it's been a long time since I think people have realized that their vote truly does count and really can mean a lot to them and their families. So, that's the part we have to have people remember, is that we could put all the signs up we wanted, all the radios we need, TV, anything that you could put. But at the end of the day, if they weren't willing to get out, it would just all gone down the drain. So people's what made the difference.
Well, and again, success breeds success. So we've empowered people now. Now they feel like their vote actually counts. Maybe they will come back out. And, maybe we should say, hey, remember back in May when you voted against this? Here's your opportunity to fix that again. Maybe we remind them of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Of that victory and the success that they had in the past. Because you're right. I think there's a huge portion of people out there who feel like my vote doesn't matter. Who gives a crap? I refuse. I'm throwing my hands up. I refuse to participate anymore. But now that they saw that it actually worked, hopefully that empowers people to get it done. Final thoughts, Tammie, before I let you go.
I mean, everything you said is true. I mean, we're going to, rest up, as you see. Been doing a lot of yelling and moving the last 75 days. We'll take a couple days off. And literally, we will start planning for the October 1st. We got to keep the momentum going, because they're going to throw a lot more things at us than they did before, because they're going to feel boxed in.
Yeah. Well, it's where they should feel at this point, because we cannot afford to have their visions be executed. We need to stop that. We need to stop it, and we need to make it happen now. Tammie Wilson, well, thank you. We didn't gloat much. We didn't gloat much. We just laid down some truth, right?
Just a lot of thankfulness, for what's going on.
Yeah, but I will gloat. 2-1, suck it. There you go. That's what I want right there. Thank you, Tammie Wilson. Appreciate you coming on board.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
All right, folks. That's it for today. Tomorrow, Firearms Friday. Looking forward to that. We will be rocking and rolling starting at 6 a.m. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.